Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Here I have my all-time favorite game console. I know this channel is very heavily featuring Game Boys, but that's primarily because they're small and easy to work with. I wanted to work up towards some of the more bigger, larger consoles, and that's hopefully what I'm going to do in today's video. So this is the original Xbox. This one isn't mine. This is one found off Facebook Marketplace. It doesn't look in particularly bad condition. So what I'm going to do is kind of do a practice on this one of replacing some capacitors and getting it booted up and just kind of like clearing it up and disassembling it, reassembling and things like that, so that I can then work on my original one from my childhood, get that back up and running, having known how to take them apart, how to do X, Y, and Z. So this is kind of like a trial one, but this one as well will be featuring in a future video where I'm going to mod this one. So I'm going to put in a bigger hard drive, install some custom firmware, and do all the rest of the stuff that you would do with an old spare console lying around. So what we need to do is, and I've kind of already done this anyway, we need to determine what motherboard revision this console is. Now, there's a few ways you can do that, but the most straightforward way is to look at the manufacturer's date on the bottom. So let's bring that up there. You can see there it says, what does it say? 2005, 07, 09. So this is one of the kind of like last revisions of this generation of console. And that gives me a 1.6B motherboard, I think it is. And there's a website, I'll put a little picture on the screen just now so you can see, but there's a table and you can look down the table as the date of manufacture, and that'll tell you what revision your board is. That's without taking it apart. In order to get this taken apart, we've got to take off these four bottom feet. There is, I think, a screw under here, and then I've seen some, yeah, so I can dent it in there. There's also a sticker under here. Now, ideally, I would like to keep these stickers. You can see it's already been, I don't know what's happened here, but it's definitely not been taken apart in the past. I'm going to try, and I'm just going to turn my hot air station on here. I'm going to try and soften the adhesive, and this is, well, 2005, this is a 20-year-old console, so I'm not expecting the adhesive to be still as good and as fresh as it was when it was put on. I'm thinking maybe some IPA might have been better. And it's probably going to get to the point where I'm just going to tear this off and not care too much. I think some of these stickers will be those like anti-peel stickers where they'll probably tear. They have like a perforated kind of like part to them, so they'll want to tear easily. So let's try with some tweezers. Okay, so I've not done a bad job of that. It's kind of definitely peeled away, and hopefully I'll just use a bit of, I don't know, well, it's actually still quite sticky, so I could probably put it down and make it flush, soften it up with the hot air gun again. But here we've got a Torx screwdriver, so let's have a see if we've got in our iFixit toolkit. Should have one this big, I would hope. Let's try this one. What's that? A bit too big. A smaller one. Yep. Now, I can't remember exactly how or what condition this was in when it was put up onto Facebook Marketplace, and I went to look back at the conversation and the person who sold it to me has deleted their account, so I have no idea if this is still in working condition, whether it booted on or not. I didn't pay too much. I think I paid like 20 quid for it at the time. Came with power cable and AV cables, which is pretty good. It's quite rare to see. So I know there's a screw down here in this part. Get a bit more, so about there. So I just need this kind of corner to come away. So I'm just gonna start heat that up a little bit. I've only got it set to about, well, it says in about 100 degrees here. That's not going to be enough really to melt this plastic or do any damage, but it's enough to just soften the residue, keeping that sticker down. Okay, it's coming quite way easily, this one, compared to the other. So there we have another Torx. Is this going to be another T10? I think they are. Yeah, same size. So actually, that's a bit loose. I think there's a security one, which I may not have. Oh no, there we go. Yeah, it's like the star spline one. These are in pretty good. I don't know whether it's just they've been in for such a long time, but they're definitely in secure, those. So that's the ones under the stickers. I can go ahead and put them back down because it'll probably come back up easy. I mean, look at that. It's not perfect, but it's certainly better than tearing it. It looks a lot better than having it teared off. But now we've got to get rid of these feet, which annoyingly, I probably won't be able to reuse. So I do have purchased from, I think it's Z Labs. Let me see, I got a delivery here today of various things. There's some, yeah, so I know they're in the packaging, but these are just some feet that go on, but they've actually got, let's open them. They've actually got holes in, so you can, I'll show you one just here. So like, there's a hole pre-put into it, so for the screw, so you can just put these back on like that. Still works as the rubberized feet at the bottom, but you can get access to the screws a lot easier, and you don't have to remove the feet next time you want to take it apart. So yeah, I need to get these apart. I could again do the hot air trick. I'm going to give the first one of them a go. I'm just thinking this is a lot softer rubber, so I'm hoping it doesn't damage it too much. Not that they're going to go back on anyway, but we'll see. Right, so they're still, to be fair, they're still quite sticky. You could put them back on. That's not sticky anymore. But actually it's left a film. It's left like a plastic film on. But that wouldn't be too hard to get through. So these ones, are these still the security bits? Yeah, they are. So I'll just fast forward through this bit or skip it ahead because it's just taking the 4 out from each corner. Same thing 4 times. Okay, so one thing I noticed with this iFixit kit, I don't know if like they improved it or this is part of the design, but if anyone could tell me, you can just, like this unscrews and separates. I don't know if you would put like maybe some bits down in there for storage, but it's a bit frustrating sometimes because when you're trying to undo something and this part's still and you're twisting, it just unscrews that. It's not the best, but the kit's pretty good. But anyway, that's all 4 removed and the 2 under the stickers. So now it should be a case of just flipping it over, and then the top should, probably with a bit of encouragement from a spudger, just separate. There we go. It's coming up a little bit from that side. There we go. And then we can have a quick look inside here. So as far as I'm aware, we need to get the hard drive and the tray for it out first, and then we can get the DVD drive out and then the power supply, I think. So let's go ahead and have a little fiddle around here. Let's remove that ribbon cable just so it's out the way. I think there is a couple of screws we need to remove before we get this out, but think it's this one here that keeps it, yeah, separated. Just tidy up the desk a bit. I mean, it works. There's one. Is there a second one down there that isn't? There's one in this corner here. Top right corner. There's two. I think there's three total, so we need to find the third one. I say I need to find this third one. Where's it going to be? There it is in the top left there. Nice and easy. Come out pretty quick. Right, that should then allow us to remove this tray. Yep. Fold it out to the side. Quite dusty. What do we need to disconnect here? Probably, yeah. Now they'll need to come out to get the hard drive out, and that might be easier to then disconnect this SATA connection. Or an IDE, I don't know what this is. There we go. That's just, I think it's just a Molex connector, isn't it? There we go. So at some point, I mean, what is this? This is it's a WD Protege. I've never heard of a WD Protege. The IDE hard drive. What size are we looking at? 27th of February 2005. Set that to the side, and then obviously we need to get this DVD drive out, and then that'll give us access to the board, which is the main thing because I want to replace the main capacitors. And in fact, looking at some of them here, none of them are bulging, which is a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, a good thing that they aren't bulging, they aren't causing any damage to other parts of the board, and they aren't leaking. And I'd say a bad thing that I've paid to replace them, so they could be kind of working, but 20-year-old capacitors aren't going to be great. So need to get this disk drive out, which may just slide out as well now, but we'll see. Yeah, I think that's coming out. It's just quite a snug fit in there. Obviously disconnect like that, and there we go. Sorry, that was a little bit off camera there, my bad. Yeah, so I just disconnected the ribbon cable there. Right, so really at this point we just need to disconnect as many of the cables as we can just to reveal all of the components in here. And then we can eventually get the motherboard out. So there's power connection there, that can kind of stay on. A couple of heat sinks, I'll leave them on for now, there's no point. There's our power board. Lots of dust kicking about in here actually, more on the power board side than anywhere else, but let's get this disconnected as well. There's a clip. There we go. Also these connectors probably for the front ports. Okay, let's just try and fold them out the way, but they're just going to want to go back. They've been in there for 20 years that way, they don't want to easily fold anywhere else. So now it's a case of just removing all of these screws to get the motherboard out. Let's just check this is a good fit. It's a bit wiggly, I'm not a big fan of that. And then the next size up doesn't fit. Torx T9, which is like a security bit. I mean, it fits, but I'm not sure which one I prefer or trust more. I'll go back to the other one. This is just it just says 2 on it. I'm sure it's a Torx. Right, keep them separate. These are the motherboard screws. Says 1, 2. There is Oh, okay, so I think the AV connector at the back, so this here is screwed onto the motherboard as well, so let's go ahead and remove that. And I suppose it would have been a good idea to disconnect the rear fan, because that's also connected to the motherboard. So we'll go ahead and pull that out, nice and easy for that one. Right, let's try now. There we go. Some other connectors down here for the controllers actually, I forgot about that. They should pull out nice and easy. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to set the rest of the console to the side. Right, okay, so what I need to do now then is I've kind of identified which capacitors need replacing. It's basically this, and this, these 5 here. They're all the same style, like, I don't know how to describe it. They've got a casing around them that's like blue and gold. But those are the 5 that need replacing. There are others, especially the clock capacitor, but we'll come to that a bit later. In fact, I'm just going to double check underneath that. Yeah, that looks good as well. But I'm going to need to remove these here. So if I flip the board over, I'm going to obviously need to keep referring back and forth which legs I need to like desolder, just to make sure I don't get the wrong component. And I don't think, I do have this nice kind of standoff 4 boards like this, but I'm not sure it's going to be of any use just now. So let me get these out of the way. Okay, I decided to go back to the mat. That kind of like standoff is great, but it only really works for things like Game Boys and smaller circuit boards really. So I'm just going to go back to the simple silicone mat that I've got, and what I'll just have to do is I'm doing it this end here. I'll get it on camera a bit better, but I've obviously got the heat sink there. That's pretty solid, gives us a nice, I don't know, like a centimetre drop, so I can get my tweezers in there and just start to wiggle that down, and it'll give me enough room to get it off. So get the soldering iron on. There we go. So that's the first one removed there. What did we get? We got C1E1. And then I was going to do the other 5. So I'll kind of just maybe not really talk through the rest of this, just leave it as like a sped up version of the video. But I just need to remove the rest here. So I'll see you when I've done all 5. Right, so now I've got all the capacitors removed. What I'm going to need to do is take each one of these and just kind of trim them down a little bit. So for the board itself, you'll see that there's gonna be a positive symbol indicating that's the positive leg of the capacitor should be going through that via. So, and what you'll find is on these capacitors, the longest leg, so if this can focus, hello, there we go. So the longest leg there on that left side, that's the positive terminal, shortest is the negative, but also there's like a stripe. That also indicates that's the negative terminal as well, just in case they were, well, you trimmed them to the same length, because what I'm going to do in a second is I'm going to trim them to about, I don't know, like 5 mil, if that, maybe 8 mil length, so that when they go through, I haven't got to do much trimming the other side, but it also just makes it so much easier to go in. I'm going to like push all the way through and somehow have the solder not cool down and solidify part way through. So just take some simple pliers, and I'm just going to go ahead and trim off a little bit of the leg, I'm still going to keep probably the positive one longer, so I'll do the negative one first. So what I would say is trim off what you think. Okay, they're going to be lost in my room because they just went flying. Trim off what you think you need and then add a little bit extra on top, just because if it's too little, in fact I'll point it into there. If it's too little, then you should be okay, but you can't add any material to it, whereas if it's a bit too long, you can always trim it off. And then the second thing I'm going to do, I don't really have a stand or a clamp really to do this, so it might be a bit tricky. I'm just going to add some solder to these legs so that when they go in, it's kind of like fresh solder meeting fresh solder, and it should perform and have a better joint. So that's what I'm going to do just now. I'll get my soldering iron back on. Okay, so I've got 4 out of the 5 done. I'm now working on the 5th one, and it's been a real pain in the arse to get these done. For some reason, some of the vias just wouldn't, the solder wouldn't melt all the way through. No matter how high I had the temperature on the soldering iron. So I just took my time, used what did I use? I got like a solder sucker and just tried to get as much as the solder out, so it was just a clean via at that point. So I've got one last one to do. It's probably the worst positioned one actually. It's about here, so let's go ahead and try and get that done. There we go. There we go, finally, all 5 done. Jesus, that was a trial and a half. Obviously, they better work. I've still got to test them. I might trim 1 or 2 of them just so they don't sit too proud and cause any like slight short circuit. So safety squints when trimming these. That's the capacitors done there. We've got to do one more one, and that's the clock capacitor over here. On a 1.6 board and 1.61 at 6B, you have to replace the capacitor, the clock capacitor. You can't just remove it and leave it so. I'm going to do that one next. Right, okay, so now I've got all of the capacitors replaced on this 1.6B motherboard. I suppose the next step really is to reassemble it back into its case, get it all connected, and then plug it in and see if it even powers on, see if it boots up, and then I might test the disk drive, see if that opens and loads a game with ease, because I do have some like disk drive pulley replacements, but I think I'll just save them if it desperately needs it. It shouldn't be too much of a fix in the future anyway, even if I have to come back to this. So I'm going to get all this put back together. Won't really need to say much about it, it's just doing the disassembly in reverse, and then we'll plug it in, test it and boot it up, and I've got a capture card, I'll record this first second it boots up and go from there. Okay. Oh, baby. Let's just flip this around. Oops. We've got a working console recapped. Power's on. Sounds a bit, I think that's just a hard drive wearing, but we good.